Welcome back to the Prolworks channel. My name is John. I finally bit the bullet and upgraded my joiner, and also my planer. This is a 16-inch joiner planer combo machine with a helical cutter head. Here you see me transferring it over to the planer mode to get this walnut planed down to rough thickness. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made a watch box that holds 15 watches in a relatively compact size. The box isn't that tall, it's only about 4 inches high, but I wanted to plane this board down to see which part had the nicest grain, and that was the piece I would be using. After ripping the piece to rough width, I could resaw it here at the table saw. This is a piece of 8/4 walnut, and I only need 1/2 inch thick material, so I don't have to be too precise here with my resawing. I head back to the joiner to continue the milling process. I'm still getting used to the European style guard, and that's why you saw me using the push blocks in the earlier shot, and in this one I'm using my hands. I bring the piece down to just over its final thickness, and then I'll take it to the drum sander to bring it down to its final thickness, which is 1/2 inch. Yes, I will be doing a dowel max video soon, but that is not this video. The dowel configurations for this box had to be somewhat thought out because I will be cutting the lid off of this box, so I had to make sure that I didn't have any dowels where I would be cutting this box in half. And so that's why you'll see I have 2 dowels on the left and 2 dowels on the right and nothing in the middle. After adjusting the jig to drill into the face of the front and back pieces, I added some spacers which would create a 1/2 inch reveal in relation to the side pieces. This was a design element I considered using in my last project, which was the toy chest. I just didn't feel like it would fit the aesthetic, and so I decided to use it on this project. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and you'll see in this next shot what it actually looks like. Because of the design of this box, I couldn't use the through groove and plug afterwards method that I've shown you in the last few videos, so I had to use my router and an edge guide to route some stopped grooves. The setup here is my walnut piece clamped to a thicker maple piece, which just gives some clearance to the edge guide. This plunge cut was pretty slow and I took my time with it, making sure not to go too far to the end of the piece. Off camera, I glued up some panels for the top and bottom pieces. These are going to be floating hardwood panels, and I got lucky that I had enough quarter sawn walnut on hand that I could use that for this entire project. I think quarter sawn walnut works well for small projects like this that have thin, longer pieces, whereas flat sawn cathedral style walnut works better for something like a dining room table. After joining and planing those pieces, I could take them to the drum sander, where I sanded them down to about 1/4 inch, which was just snug enough to fit into those grooves. One of the benefits of using dowels for a butt joint like this is that I only have to clamp from one direction. If I were to make this same piece with finger joints at the corners, I would have to clamp from both directions, which would be a lot more difficult and more of a cluster with all of the clamps in the way. You can see all of the blue tape that I've used here to mask off and mitigate any glue squeeze out. This takes a little bit of time, but it's time well spent because it's less cleanup later on. After the glue up, I could separate the lid from the box. I made this cut using a ripping blade, and I set my fence at about 1.5 inches, which I knew would not interfere with any of the dowels that I used. With most of the box work done, I went ahead and got some maple milled up. This maple is milled down to 1/4 inch thick by 1 5/8 wide, and I have 6 total pieces here taped together. I have them taped together because I'm going to be making some cross slap joints, and so I want to do some gang cuts so that everything is as accurate as I can get. I marked my piece relative to the actual box instead of measuring with the tape. This is always more accurate, and it worked out well in this case. I did a few test cuts, and here's the cross slap joint that I'm after. The vertical pieces only require 2 joints, so it's simple enough to set up a stop block and use it for both cuts. The horizontal pieces require 4 joints, so I had to set my stop block 2 different times, and in this case I did use a few test pieces to make sure that my cuts were going to be accurate before I made them. These pieces were pretty snug, but I did use a dab of glue at each joint to hold them in place. I'll be using brass Brusso hinges like I have in the past, and you can see I've upgraded from a box cutter to a rusted marking knife, so go me. And then I'll use a router to route out the bulk of the material, and then come back with a chisel to square everything up. This is going to be the same Brusso latch that I used in my chest box build, and this time I bought the template instead of making my own because I figure I'll be using this latch more times in the future, so it'll be a worthy investment. I gave all of the edges a very, very slight chamfer, and then cleaned up any of the inside corners that the router couldn't reach with a chisel. A rusted chisel. After getting everything sanded up to 220 grit, I could apply some oil. In this case, it's going to be the same as my last few projects, which is this Mahoney's walnut oil. It goes on pretty simple with a wipe on, wipe off, and after letting this coat dry, I came back with some of the oil and wax mixture to apply one last coat. That about wraps this one up. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out, but let me know what you guys think. I look forward to going into a little bit more detail about that new 16-inch joiner planer combo machine I just got. I will be doing an overview/review video, so if you guys have any questions ahead of time that I could address in that video, please let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.